This is the Gen Y Leaders Podcast. Welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast, where we guide millennials to become the next generation of business leaders and entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Eric Huey, and multiple times a month, we bring you interviews from high-performing millennials who are challenging perceptions and changing expectations of our generation. Our mission is to help you overcome fear, take action, and go confidently in the direction of your dreams. It's time to start preparing now, mainly because 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day, which will create a vacuum of career opportunities that you've been waiting for. Will you be ready? Courtney, welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast.
Thank you. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time and taking the time out of being a mom and entrepreneur. If you could just tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Courtney Tucker. I am a wife to my husband, Zach. We have a 1-year-old, actually almost 15-month-old daughter now. And so I've been learning to really navigate the term mompreneur life. We live in St. Louis. We born and raised here. We actually moved to Colorado for a hot minute and then moved back here just earlier this year to be closer to family after having our daughter. And my husband and I own a company called Hello Freedom, which I started in 2017. And earlier this year was actually able to retire my husband, and he now works with me full time in the business. So we get to work from home and raise our daughter. And it's really just a really special life we've created. So what we do is we offer online business coaching services for coaches. So the easiest way that we explain what we do is we just say, we're coaches for coaches, and we work with all different types of coaches at all different stages of their business to really help them start, build, and scale their online businesses. So everything from health, fitness, wellness professionals to financial coaches to relationship coaches and everything in between. And we help them take the first step to getting their business online. We have clients who are just getting started up to multiple six-figure earners. So that's in a nutshell what we do.
Yeah, very exciting. Congrats on retiring your husband, Zach. It's a big step, and I'm sure it allows you guys a lot of freedom having a 15-month-old.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's good and bad at times.
Oh, I'm sure. What would you say is your biggest takeaway, maybe, or lesson learned from all this time and put in and now being able to retire your husband?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so one of our core values and driving forces behind what we do is freedom, which is why we call the business Hello Freedom. And our mission is to really help others achieve a life of freedom, whatever that means for them, through entrepreneurship. So we love having, the time freedom and the location freedom to work when we want on our own schedule and all of that goodness. And what we've learned this over the last year or so since having our daughter Winnie is that sometimes we can give ourselves too much freedom, and it can backfire at us to where we keeps ourselves a little bit too lax with giving ourselves flexibility in our schedule and things. So really having to just have the discipline to still get our work done, even though we do get to work from home and kind of make our own rules.
Definitely. And that's kind of a perfect segue. And a staple question that I ask every guest on the show, seeing as the name of the show is Gen Y, is that part of your why? It sounds like your mission is really to help others achieve the same freedom that you've achieved.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit of a backstory on kind of how I got here and why that's become so important to me. I actually graduated college with a master's in elementary education, and I started in the work world as an elementary school teacher. And while I loved the work I was doing, I really hated the lack of flexibility and freedom that I had in my schedule. I had to plan my vacations around the school breaks, and, taking a day off for anyone who's been a teacher, is a teacher. It was very challenging to take a day off and, write sub plans and all of that. And I vividly remember looking at the teachers pay scale. You find them online, and seeing that my income was essentially projected for the next 30 years. It was already predetermined how much money I was able to make, and
regardless of how hard you worked.
Yeah. So it was very demotivating to me to have no incentive. The harder I worked, or the more hours I put in, and the better results, my students got, it didn't matter. I was going to have this fixed income. And so I just had this stirring inside of me, and this desire for more, more income, more freedom, more fulfillment in my work, more challenge. I wanted to have a greater impact. And I love teachers. So anyone listening to this who's a teacher, I love teachers. They have such a special place in my heart, and we need them, absolutely. But for me, I felt like there was something more.
Yeah.
And so I started dabbling in this online coaching thing, and started my business as a health and fitness coach. It was kind of a side passion and a side hobby that I had. And within about 4 months, I was able to replace my income and leave my full-time job. And that was, I had this aha of like, oh my gosh, this could actually work. I could actually, sustain our lifestyle and do work I love. And so it just kind of grew from there. And over the next few years, I really lost the passion for the health and fitness coaching, and fell more into getting to coach other people on their businesses. And that's really what's been what I found is my sweet spot and my passion, what I love to do. And I love being able to help my clients, create freedom, whatever that means for them, whether that's leaving their 9-to-5 job, or just making, some extra money on the side to get to support, a financial goal that they have. It's been really fulfilling to get to see other people use their gifts to have a massive impact on the world and do work that they're passionate about.
Definitely. Yeah. Kudos to you for being self-aware enough that, looking down, or looking around on the horizon rather, of where your career would go as a teacher would not get you to where you wanted to be in terms of, financial goals, or, just all around happiness and freedom. But then two, to, realize that, and then two, to act on it is a whole nother step. So I admire you and all the entrepreneurs who can make the leap.
Yeah. And it's, it wasn't there wasn't a lack of hurdles along the way. And I'm sure anyone who's been in that situation has had people around them telling them, not to leave their 401k, or, not to take the risk of, a secure job. And I worked through all of that for sure. And as someone who is, a recovering people pleaser, as I say, it was really hard for me to, have my parents who, grew up in a very different generation. And not that they didn't support me, but I think it's a very newer thing with this generation to not, just take kind of the traditional job for 30 years and have a pension and a 401k and all of that. And so it was hard, but definitely worth it.
Before we started the recording, we were talking about topic ideas and whatnot for the podcast. And I think we more or less landed on the importance of mentorship, at a broad level, that is. So I guess when you were in your previous role before you started this coaching business, and you were, I guess, strictly focused in the health and wellness field, and helping others with their health and wellness, what was that experience like? Did you have a mentor then? Mm-hmm. And I guess just walk us through that.
Yeah. So I had the idea, I had this nudge inside me of starting an online business for almost a year before I actually started. Mm-hmm. And so in July of 2017, I was listening to actually a podcast from someone that I really looked up to, and actually someone she was my fitness coach at the time, and I worked with her remotely. And that's what kind of gave me the idea of, I can coach people in this way too. Mm-hmm. So I was listening to her podcast, and she had someone on who was advertising, their business coaching program. And so I jumped on and I got on a call with them and then hired my first coach and made a huge investment, or what was a huge investment for me at the time, in this coaching program. I had no idea what I was doing coaching online. I'd been a personal trainer. So I knew that side of it, but had no experience with the online thing, no experience with sales. And I just had this idea. And so putting some skin in the game and making that first investment in myself was really what gave me the kick in the butt that I needed to actually commit to taking action.
Mm-hmm.
And not just the investment, but everything inside that program pushed me so far outside of my comfort zone. I started posting on social media and talking about what I do and, pitching my services and getting on sales calls and doing these things that were so foreign to me that I never would have done had I not had a mentor, and a community around me that was pushing me and challenging me to do these things. So it really was the reason that I took actions I never would have taken otherwise, trying to do it on my own.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like you got some really good return on investment, ROI, but also some almost a layer of accountability, it sounds like, to act upon the things you learned because you knew that you paid for it.
Definitely. Oh, 100%. And, I like to think of coaching as kind of threefold. I think you get the guidance. So, a good coach will help you lay out, a step-by-step plan. You have the community where you are reminded that you're not alone. Being surrounded by like-minded people in this entrepreneurial space is just absolutely invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the accountability, like you mentioned. And I think it's really easy for us to, no matter how ambitious that we are and how, dedicated we are to our goals, it's very easy to quit when things get hard or to make excuses when you face challenges or aren't sure how to navigate through things. And so the accountability I had with that, and that I've had ever since, is absolutely a reason that, I've gotten to where I am today.
Yeah. So it sounds like, without question, we're both on the same page. People should definitely have mentors. But I guess to take that a step further, I guess a good question would be for the audience, what's the best way to find that match or, a good fit for a mentor if someone's looking for one?
That's a really good question. When I'm personally looking for a mentor, I like to get referrals and just talk to people and who's worked for them. I think referrals is one of the most effective ways to get clients yourself, but also to be connected with mentors. And I encourage people to always look for mentors who are living the lifestyle that they want to live and not just getting the results that they want to get. So what I mean by that is, me personally, freedom is really important to me. And I really enjoy being able to work about 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
And so I want to be able to build my business and hit the revenue goals that we have without working, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And so when I'm looking for mentors, if I see someone who has a highly successful business, but, they are constantly on their social media and they're, constantly burnt out and working, so many hours, to me, that's not someone that has the type of success that I want to achieve. So I just encourage people to look at that as well.
Yeah.
And
It
then
sounds like a great lens to look through for sure.
yeah, for sure. And I've made that mistake, to hire people. Then I'm like, I get into the coaching relationship and I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't really, the approach I wanted to take, but we live and learn.
Right.
And then with mentorship, the other thing I like to mention to people is just, I really caution people to not have too many mentors.
Yeah.
It's the whole idea of having too many cooks in the kitchen. So if you're, listening to 10 different podcasts and reading, different books from different people and taking different courses, everyone's going to have their own approach to what works for them. And it can get really overwhelming and confusing, if you're just seeking too many people's kind of roadmaps. So that's my other thought on mentorship.
Yeah, appreciate that. How about in terms of frequency? Are you meeting with mentors once a week, once a month? What's that coaching process look like?
Yeah, it's dependent on the season of my business. So I've definitely had really high touch coaches, more so in the beginning, where I had weekly check-ins and accountability and things. And as the business has grown and we've made more investments in outsourcing and hiring and that kind of thing, I invest more in higher level coaches and masterminds, to where usually we're meeting like a couple times a month, but still having more low key touch points throughout the weeks and things. So it just varies, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's your thoughts on paid versus free or organic in terms of a mentor-mentee relationship?
That's a great question. I personally have never had a like an official mentor mentee relationship that wasn't paid. For me, I think that the financial investment, is really what causes me to commit. And I see that with my clients as well.
Mhm.
My clients who commit, at a higher financial investment, definitely show up differently than someone who invests in a lower ticket thing. And so I do think that just having that skin in the game really causes, you to show up and commit to putting in the work. So that's really only been my experience.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the accountability portion is huge. And like you mentioned earlier on in the call, as far as the things you pay for, you want to make sure you use, that they don't go to waste. So it gives you an element of self accountability even after the fact.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, yes. And then I guess when you say free mentorship, now I'm thinking like, podcasts and, there's so much free content out there. And I've definitely learned a ton and implemented a lot of things from just my own education in that way. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point too. Yeah. Endless resources out there in our digital era.
Yeah.
Um, the other topic that we had, riffed on a little bit before the recording started was the topic of failure. And unfortunately, it's very frowned upon in today's society, but it seems like you've got a very positive view on it. So I guess talk a little bit about how you've developed that callousness to failure, and maybe some of your failures that you've grown from.
Yeah. I love talking about failure. I really do. Um, it's something that didn't always have this relationship with. I think I had to get to a place where I realized, as someone who is, I can be a perfectionist and, want things to be quote unquote perfect before I put them out there. I saw in the earlier stages of my business, it was really holding me back, and it was really keeping me from moving forward. Almost, had me paralyzed in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so I remember in my first few months of my business and trying to take on clients, I was, hosting sales calls, and I was selling a high ticket, $1,500 fitness coaching package. And I would get on these sales calls because that's, how my coach taught me to do it. And I must have heard no 20 or more times before I ever signed a client.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember being out to dinner with Zach on our anniversary in September. So just a couple months after I'd started my business. And I was tearing up, and I remember telling him, I'm quitting. I can't do this. This isn't for me. And he gave me the greatest, pep talk that a loving husband would do. And, just encouraged me to keep going. And I did. And I remember deciding shortly after that I was either going to have to change my relationship with failure, or I was going to keep myself stuck where I was forever. And so I really started just doing the internal work that I needed to do to start seeing failures not as a failure, but as an opportunity for me to learn and to grow. And it's so cliche because you hear, all the successful influencers talk about, they had to fail so many times to get to where they are. But when you're actually the one failing, it feels very vulnerable and it feels very defeating.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to really understand that whole cliched philosophy, right? And it's so true, is that if you're not failing, you're not moving forward.
Yeah.
And every failure really, really is an opportunity to grow. And you really can't grow if you're not failing. And so I love to challenge my clients to fail faster. And I offer them this question that I think helps put things into perspective. But one of the things, I teach my clients is how to do launches, right? How to launch a program. And most of them are not successful the first time they launch their program. And so I asked them, I say, if you knew that your 8th launch was going to be when you were successful, how quickly would you want to get through launches 1 through 7?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, like really fast. And that's the whole idea of failing faster. The faster that you just take action and you allow yourself to fail and you see it as an opportunity for you to get better and do better, that's where you're really going to grow. And that's where you're going to start to see your momentum build. And it's a lot more fun when you're not, beating yourself up every time you do something, that you consider a failure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I appreciate the story there. That's awesome. So would you say it's safe to say that you wouldn't be where you are today without those failures?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I'm still failing. I mean, I fail all the time. I talked about sales calls, but I've said yes to working with clients who were not a good fit that ended up, being disastrous. I've, had ideas for programs that I waited way too long to launch because, again, I was trying to make things, perfect. I've made less than ideal investments in my business and lost a lot of money that way. I've, succumbed to social media rules and showing up a certain way that I thought I should, rather than what felt good to me. So yeah, I've made all kinds of failures and I continue to, but I really do think that that's, what's allowed me to kind of grow and evolve into the coach that I am today.
For sure. So for those folks out there who are experiencing a failure, who have just had a setback in their own business, obviously the theme here is to fail fast, but how quickly do they bounce back after that? And what's that look like for them? How would you encourage them in the downturn, in between the peaks, I guess, when they're in the valley? What are they doing there? Are they assessing what they did wrong? Or are they just taking another swing at it? What's your advice to them when they're down in the dumps?
Yeah, great question. I would remind yourself that entrepreneurship is truly a roller coaster and
Yeah.
that you're supposed to have bad days.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times people fail and they're down or they're discouraged and they start questioning, is this for me? And they start doubting if they're capable. And unfortunately, I think that's why so many people quit, is because they allow themselves to stay in that place. And so if you're failing or you're discouraged or something hasn't gone the way you want it to, know that that is normal. And the ones who bounce back and who keep going in spite of their failures are the ones who will eventually be successful, right? The only way to truly fail is to stop trying. And so what I would offer to you is to change your relationship with failure, and rather than seeing it as something that's negative or using it as a way to judge yourself, choose to view the situation from a new perspective, right? Choose to look at, how is this actually happening for me? And choose to believe that it is happening for you and for your good. We can oftentimes see that in hindsight, right? You can look back and say, oh, I know why I had to go through that really challenging thing, because, it got me to this place or it led me here. So if you can start having an awareness while you're in the valley, right? While you're in the thick of it, and you can start seeing it as happening for you, I think that's going to really help you to be able to bounce back more quickly. And I'm a huge proponent of reflection. I think that if you are always reflecting on your days and your weeks and looking for opportunities to grow and looking for areas that you can improve, you're just going to improve that much faster.
Super great advice. Appreciate that. Just a couple kind of bookend questions, so to speak, here that I ask every guest as we wrap up. What are some people, books, or resources that you turn to, or ones that have made an impact on your personal life or your business?
Oh my gosh, so many books.
Maybe a top couple, I guess.
I'll give you a top couple that I would recommend all entrepreneurs read. But I'm a personal development junkie, so I love this question. The very first book that I remember kind of setting me on this journey, it's a very quick read. It's called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And I actually used to gift that book to every one of my clients as a health and fitness coach. It's just a really, really good foundational book. You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero is a book that I encourage anyone who's struggling with your relationship with money, your mindset around money. That would be a really great read for you. And then most recently, I read a book earlier this year called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And it has really opened my eyes and helped me to really double down on the way I want to live my life and the way I want to build my business and the way I want to help my clients build my business. And I just think that is a really good life and business book that I would highly recommend.
Appreciate those recommendations. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy is actually one that's been recommended by several guests on the show. So it's interesting to see that continue to come to the top of people's lists.
Yeah, it is a core, quick, just great read.
Yeah. Courtney, where can people connect with you if they're interested in coaching or business advice, what have you?
Yeah, the best place to hang out with me is I have a free Facebook group community, and I do live trainings in there every Wednesday, currently at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And it's facebook.com/groups/Courtney Tucker. And I can send you that link if you want to drop it in the show notes. That would be a great place to connect. And then on Instagram, I'm just at Courtney Tucker with an underscore at the end.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll be sure to drop those in the show notes for anyone who's listening and interested in connecting with you. Courtney, thanks so much for your time. It's been great to connect and appreciate all the value provided on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
That wraps up today's episode. We hope to have brought you some valuable key takeaways. Most importantly, whatever you learned, take action on it. Apply it to your life. Apply it to your career. Motivation and inspiration only come as a result of taking that first step. So if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on whichever platform you found the show. You can also follow us on all the major social media platforms or contact us directly at genwhyleaders@gmail.com. That's GENWHY leaders@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Eric Huey, and thanks for listening to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast.